Story we have been following throughout the past 2 days surrounds the superstar herself, Caitlin Clark, the WNBA star, the Indiana Fever star, Caitlin Clark. She's going to miss all the action on the court.
Caitlin Clark gets hurt, and guess what? Your demand vanishes because people ain't going to pay up to see these athletes that are ungrateful that their sport's growing. People aren't paying up for that. And we are here, right here. The tickets for this game, for this All-Star game, they've dropped by 50%.
For the WNBA, what was meant to be Caitlin Clark's coronation week in Indianapolis has become a nightmare. Anticipating unprecedented attendance and enormous profits, the city placed a huge 34-story advertisement of Clark on the JW Marriott. Instead, the All-Star game was boycotted by irate fans and left empty seats. Everyone is asking the same question. How did the league make the hometown celebration of their top talents into a financial catastrophe? And what was Kathy Angelberg's final statement regarding the All-Star Weekend officiating crisis? The response exposes every flaw in the WNBA's treatment of the athletes who genuinely attract fans. If you believe the WNBA will ever learn its lesson, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Come on.
You come to Indianapolis, look, this is what everybody's been talking about. This right here, Caitlin Clark, the banner right there on the JW Marriott. It is 34 stories banner, unbelievable. Is the largest banner ever on the JW Marriott. You may think about the bracket. Remember back in the NCAA tournament back in 2021? Yeah, it's bigger than that as well. 113,000 square feet. It is unbelievable. And you see what it says, from downtown in my town. No doubt, this is something that is grabbing everyone's attention. And who else better to be on that than the star herself, Caitlin Clark?
For months, Indianapolis prepared for what they believed would be the most significant WNBA weekend ever. At the airport, the city installed a model all-star basketball court. Local companies hired more employees and increased their inventories. When tickets went on sale, Gainbridge Fieldhouse was completely sold out in a matter of hours. According to TickPick, the average resale ticket price was $262, with the top seats fetching thousands of dollars. The entry price was $121, the highest in the history of the WNBA All-Star Game.
Really unfortunate that Caitlin Clark missed it. The crowd would have been exploding. The crowd would have been exploding. The arena would have been exploding. Oh man, a big miss as far as the WNBA is concerned.
Then came July 17th. Everything changed instantly when Clark announced his groin ailment on social media. The ticket market was absolutely collapsing hour by hour. After the news broke, the 262 average prices fell to $64 in a matter of hours. That represents a 75% decline in value. Additionally, vendors were in a frenzy. The market for resale fell into utter chaos. Suddenly, those who had purchased tickets as investments were attempting to sell them for enormous losses. The admission fee decreased from $121 to about $65. Furthermore, purchasers weren't exactly scurrying in at those incredibly low prices. This wasn't a slow deterioration over several days. On social media, this financial disaster was occurring in real time.
$121 all the way down to just $64 after news broke that Caitlin Clark won't be playing. These are people saying, I'm done. I don't want to watch. Caitlin Clark's not. I bought tickets solely to watch Caitlin Clark in the All-Star game. I made accommodations solely to get to Indiana to watch Caitlin Clark in the All-Star game. She's injured. I have no interest in that anymore. People are selling their tickets so much so they just want off of them. 121, okay. You want it for 100? Oh no, okay. I guess I gotta lower it to 80. Oh, you don't want to buy it for 80? Okay, I guess I'll lower it to 70. You don't want to buy it to 70? I guess I'll lower it to $64. The WNBA is paying attention to these trends, and they're seeing firsthand what Caitlin Clark is worth to this league.
Why is this even more vicious? This trend had previously occurred, but not to this extent. Road game fees fell sharply when Clark's quad issue in May caused her to miss regular season games. Prices dropped 47% for the Washington game and 71% for the highly sought-after Chicago matchup. However, those were games from the regular season. The crash was unprecedented, and it happened during her hometown's All-Star game.
The ticket prices. The demand fell off a cliff. And it's not just the on-court product that suffers without number 22, Caitlin Clark. The entire weekend's economic opportunities have felt the fallout.
The first non-allout of the season was going to occur at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Consider that. For the largest basketball weekend Indianapolis had hosted since the NBA All-Star Game, a building that had been packed for nearly 2 years for every Fever game now had vacant seats. For all of them, the math was cruel. Vendors faced enormous losses after spending thousands on All-Star Weekend products. Hotels and restaurants that had anticipated record attendance were now facing cancellations. As reality set in, downtown Indianapolis had an economic rippling effect.
But when it comes to the vendors in the arena, the shops in the arena, they're not going to have the same amount of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was there. The surrounding restaurants, the surrounding areas, the surrounding attractions, they're not going to have the same number of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was healthy.
One guy missing a single game wasn't the only issue here. The fans were making it very evident who is the real source of interest in the WNBA. Ticket prices don't plummet like this when other elite athletes are hurt. In essence, the market was stating that it was not worth going to the All-Star game without Clark. Something the league badly didn't want to acknowledge was made clear by the crash. One player was the foundation of their entire season-breaking performance. All of those revenue milestones and attendance records suddenly seemed far less significant without her.
This year, for the second time ever, the WNBA All-Star Game was supposed to feature an actual star. Normally, this celebration of pretend basketball features players that no one's ever heard of.
There was more to Clark's groin injury than meets the eye. After months of increasing physical play that the referees repeatedly refused to call, this was the predictable outcome. The referees continued to ignore their concerns as opposing players discovered they could snatch, push, and beat Clark without facing any repercussions.
How did we get to an all-star game in Indiana where Caitlin Clark is not healthy enough to play? Well, it all started last year, in her rookie season, where she received 20% of all the flagrant fouls in the league. And most of them came from Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. And these weren't basketball plays. They were not only fouling her, but they were getting up, laughing about it, laughing about Caitlin Clark getting assaulted. Any other work environment, people go to jail for what's going on.
From a great distance, Stephanie White anticipated this. The Fever coach has been criticizing the refereeing throughout the season, claiming that they can play with a level of roughness against her that other players aren't exposed to. White was not exaggerating. Referees ignored her as she watched her best player being battered in game after game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. I knew it as an opponent, and I see it as her coach. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is. And we've got to help her learn to adjust and use it against them in certain ways. We've got to find some ways to make it a little bit easier for her. But the level of physicality overall in our league has been at a different level than it's been for a long time.
Let's face it, what was going on the court was real. The perennially poor second-rate officiating that was transforming games into ugly physical confrontations was criticized by the Washington Post. They actually proposed that the league adopt a bruise as its new logo and no call as its new motto. It's not exaggerated. Every night, that was what the fans watched. Do you want concrete examples? With no calls, teams were battering and hooking Clark. Defenders were captured on camera forcing her off screens, grabbing her arms, and fouling her on drives without using whistles. The referees merely observed it. Targeting Clark became a valid tactic for rival teams as a result of this culture.
And last year, I noticed how much it was just Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was taking all the hits. Caitlin Clark was taking all the abuse. But this year they've added Sophie Cunningham. She gets more flagrant fouls on her than anybody in the league besides Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston, she's been taking hits as well. But the worst thing is the consistency. So they don't call flagrant fouls, or most of the time, Caitlin Clark could be held for an entire game at a time. They don't call fouls. They don't call common fouls. But then when it's the Indiana Fever, guess what? Touch foul here, touch foul here. They call absolutely nothing.
Below is what exacerbates the situation. Officials have protected other famous athletes throughout sports history. The biggest draws in the league are typically not treated like test subjects. However, Clark was being crushed as the referees pretended they had forgotten their duties. The statistics demonstrate that the league is not doing enough to safeguard its players. Over the last 2.5 seasons, there have been 57 head and neck injuries. The same Washington Post report says small forwards and guards are being crushed in particular. This wear and tear isn't typical. This is a trend of risky play being let to go on. Lisa Leslie is fully aware of the groin injury Clark is dealing with. The WNBA legend dealt, she cautioned that these injuries can last for months or even years after suffering a groin injury herself in 2006. Referees' refusal to perform their duties has forced Clark to face the truth. This wasn't a random basketball incident or bad luck. This was the inevitable result of a league that doesn't want to safeguard its most important resource. This moment was the culmination of every uncalled grab, shove, every foul that went uncalled. The WNBA has now lost millions of dollars in income due to the officiating situation, which also reveals their total incompetence in overseeing the game. Don't be shocked when fans stop coming when your biggest star gets hurt because you didn't protect her.
They had that injury 2006, and listen, I was heavily taped around my thigh, around my glute, just trying to make sure there was enough pressure to hold that groin. And the hard part is that the groin is sort of an area that you can't just touch and go, it hurts right here. You feel it deep. You have to get a lot of deep treatment, whether it's ice and heat and rest. Well, Caitlin Clark, she can't find a lot of rest right now because she's mid-season. But I think that injury is really tough because it lingers. No matter how much medicine you take, you can feel fine. You get back out there, one move, one change of direction, and boom, you're right back feeling that same type of pain. So it's going to be a tough injury that she's going to have to manage.
How long did it take you to recover from?
To be honest, Tracy, I play tennis and I can still feel that injury linger because I don't know that it ever really goes away. You just learn to manage and play with it.
Everyone was waiting to see how Kathy Angel-Burt would handle the most significant crisis of her time as WNBA commissioner, as supporters coordinated boycotts and ticket sales plummeted in real time. This was her chance to take charge and solve the officiating issues that caused Clark's injuries. Rather, she gave precisely the type of corporately sterile reaction that infuriated fans.
A bunch of players and coaches over the last few days have complained without being fine-worthy about officiating. I just want to see about your thoughts on if officiating is an issue and how it can be improved, because clearly there seems to be problems or disconnect between what players and coaches feel and what officials are actually calling.
Angel-Burt delivered the standard executive non-answer when asked about the refereeing problems during All-Star Weekend. She convened a productive and cordial discussion with more than 40 players and league stakeholders, focusing on common objectives while avoiding the main issue altogether. Fans were not interested in learning about successful meetings. They demanded that the referees who allowed Clark to be beaten up during the season be held accountable.
I know as a fan of sports for 60 years now, I know that, no one's ever happy with officiating. All sports deal with it, but we're working hard to make sure we're putting the best product out on the court, and our officiating then follows that.
Her response ignored the financial harm that was happening in real time throughout Indianapolis. As ticket prices crashed and businesses experienced massive losses, Angel-Burt was talking about how to keep teams viable and have fruitful conversations. The disparity was shocking. Fans were actually using their money to cast their votes, but she acted as though nothing had changed. What was the true desire of the supporters? A direct acknowledgement that the officiating had been terrible. They sought concrete improvements to protect athletes like Clark. They wanted someone to admit that letting opposing teams assault you is not acceptable. The biggest star hurts business. Rather, they heard corporate representatives discuss common objectives and fruitful discussions. League leadership is totally out of touch with players and supporters, as demonstrated by Angelbert's tone-deaf answer. She was discussing preserving the status quo while fans planned boycotts and Indianapolis businesses calculated their losses. The boycott got worse rather than better since she didn't properly address the officiating situation.
They play against Breanna Stewart. She goes to the line 14 times. Asia Wilson goes to the line 13 times. And Aaliyah Boston can't play 20 minutes in a game without being on the bench in foul trouble. That's another problem that we're dealing with. But like I said, this year, it's not just Caitlin Clark. If you wear that Indiana Fever jersey, consider it done. The refs are not going to be fair, and they are going to cheat and do whatever it takes to do what the higher-ups say.
Because of the commissioner's poor handling of this problem, supporters are beginning to doubt whether the WNBA can truly reform. If you respond with corporate platitudes about productive discourse after your largest revenue driver is hurt due to the ref's failure to protect her, you've completely lost the plot. Fans responded appropriately after seeing through the hollow promises. They ceased purchasing tickets. Fans referred to the WNBA's All-Star Game as a disgrace to basketball, and the league received exactly what they deserved. The league had to try to market a product that no one wanted to buy without Clark. And it was horrible to see the outcomes. The actual game turned into a heartbreaking reminder of what occurs when your stars aren't protected. Gamebridge Fieldhouse was filled with empty seats. The basketball was awful, and the energy was flat. It felt more like a practice scrimmage that no one was interested in, even though it was meant to be the season's premier event.
I mean, you're going to mess around, and a large, massive group of fans are going to be like, enough is enough. We've never had to see anything like it in sports, but you don't see these other leagues going around talking crazy about their fan bases all the time, like this league does. It's continuous. They're running their mouth about the people that are paying money to see them. You don't have other jobs where people walk up. You're in a public job that's in front of the world.
Everything was made worse by the four-point shooting trick. Fans were treated to what one source described as a glorified layup line, with players simply jacking up jumpers from far behind the arc in place of actual basketball. It was shameful because there was no defense. The whole thing devolved into an unwatchable mess that turned off the people that genuinely tune in for real basketball because no one was trying or competing. What became more of a story than the game itself? Clark is being recruited by the New York Liberty using their mascot. Over the weekend of All-Stars. Take a moment to consider that. More buzz was created by a team mascot making recruitment pitches than by the actual game. The Liberty demonstrated that they knew something the league didn't by pursuing Clark aggressively. How to care for a valuable item. Everything that took place on the court was overshadowed by their behavior.
Mascot is going through Caitlin shit. Yeah, just going through, I'm going to tell you, Leah Boston, let's break down her face right now. I am not happy with the Liberty mascot invading our home turf right here. I mean, that mascot's cute. It is. She's having fun, but, you know, it's the Liberty mascot. So, of course, that is what everybody notices, right? After the meeting, the WWE style meeting in the back of the arena, right? As the heels are all meeting together, Breanna Stewart and Sabrina and Sandy Barndello, basically the Liberty, and of course the recruiting into the Four Horsemen. They're recruiting Caitlin Clark.
Without Clark, this was the WNBA's first big test, and it was a colossal failure. Compared to games during the regular season, where her presence generates excitement and energy, the difference was striking. The All-Star Game revealed how much the league truly relies on one player to spark interest in the absence of her drawing ability. The wider ramifications are enormous. There is more to the Clark effect than a single player selling tickets or raising stats. It concerns women's basketball's overall future, as well as the league's ability to maintain the momentum they've established this season. They can't, as this all-star catastrophe demonstrated. Admirers of the league can no longer disregard the message that was given when people voted with their wallets. Not just one player was missing, as seen by the vacant seats, expensive crash tickets, and unfavorable reviews. They focused on a basic discrepancy between the WNBA's performance and what fans desire. This All-Star weekend exposed the reality after months of the league boasting about record attendance and unheard-of growth. You're left with a product that fans don't want to watch if you take away Clark's celebrity status. Cover. The catastrophe demonstrated that the WNBA runs the risk of losing the audience that truly counts if the issues that caused her injury are not addressed. The Women's National Basketball Association was given everything. A generational talent that generated millions of dollars in new revenue, record viewership, and unheard-of fan interest. They succeeded in making it a warning about the consequences of failing to safeguard what is most important. Toned-down leadership, subpar officiating, and a total lack of fan interaction. This mess was the result of expectations. Caitlin Clark's journey doesn't end with this all-star catastrophe. Fans are calling for improvements from a league that is obviously in need of change. The actual query that the WNBA is experiencing. Will they take this costly lesson to heart, or will they continue to make the same mistakes until there is nothing left to salvage? If you believe the WNBA will ever learn its lesson, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. To ensure you don't miss anything, like, subscribe, and enable all notifications. We'll see you in the next video. Click the video on the screen.